Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Buddhacharya Ashtoto the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhacharya Ashtoto the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, I said I wouldn't forget, but is it 19 or 20? 20. You know. Remind me, because I'm getting senile. I have your Lakshmi for the fan from Maharaj in my bag. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 7th day of September 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 14, the three modes of material nature, text 20 on page 583. Gunan etan atitya trin dehi Deya samudbhavan Janma Mrityu Jara Dukkha Vimukto Amritam Ashnute Gunane Tanatitya Trin Dehi Deya samudbhavan Janma Mrityu Jara Dukkha Vimukto Mitam Ashnute Gunane Tanatitya Trin Dehi Deya samudbhavan Janma Mrityu Jara Dukkha Vimukto Mitam Ashnute Gunane Tanatitya Trin Dehi Dehi Samudbhavan Janma mrityu jara dukkha vimukto mitamashnute. Gunane tana titya trin dehi dehi samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkha vimukto mishram ashnute. Are you initiated devotee? Please go ahead. Gunane tana titya trin dehi dehi samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkha vimukto mitamashnate. Gunane tana titya trin dehi dehi samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkha vimukto mitamashnute. Oh, let me do the synonyms soon, a little late. Gunan, qualities, etan, all these, atitya, transcending, trin, three, dehi, the embodied soul, deha, the body, samudbhavan, produced of, janma, of birth, mrityu, death, jara, and old age, dukkai, the distresses, vimuktaha, being freed from, amritam, nectar, ashnute, he enjoys. Translation: when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Purport: how one can stay in the transcendental position, even in this body, in full Krishna consciousness, is explained in this verse. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within this material body, by advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And this will be explained in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So now we're getting to the practical result of the knowledge that's been explained up till now about the three modes of material nature. Krishna has described at the beginning of this chapter that he is the source of everything, and that this whole world is working on the basis of these three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. This is how the material energy interacts. And these material modes have a profound effect on our consciousness. They work in the mind. The mind is in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. And we've read many descriptions here. If you're in the mode, if your mind is affected by the mode of passion, then you'll be very eager to accumulate wealth and spend it for a sense gratification, get ahead, get prestige, all the things that people strive for so much, especially in this Kali Yuga. If you're in the mode of ignorance, then the effort is too much. You'd rather sleep in, take some intoxication, everything gets very dirty because you always put everything off, procrastination. Some of you may recognize some of these tendencies in your previous life. But this is a very dangerous mode, because when you die in the mode of ignorance, because leaving the body is the final exam. Everything we've done in this lifetime is determines the state of our consciousness when we leave the body. And then we have a certain destiny or destination which we made ourselves. So if you're in the mode of ignorance, then as Krishna has explained, if you recall, it's a good chance you'll lose the human form of life and go down. Go down into the animal species, plants. There's many different kinds of plants. They're also living entities. So this is a serious business. And the whole point of this chapter is to give us a very clear view of the different modes and give us a means of transcending the modes. Coming to the mode of goodness, staying in the mode of goodness as far as possible, and then building on that to come to the mode of pure goodness, where the lower modes don't affect us. This is explained in the second chapter of the first canto of Bhagavatam, where he says, this verse I chant before every Bhagavatam class, Nasta prayasha buddreshu nityam bhagavata sevya, bhagavad-yuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by serving the pure devotee, the Mahabhagavat, what is that? The influence of the modes of nature wanes more and more, and one comes to the point of irrevocable devotional service, naishtiki. And what's that state? Tada rajas tamo bhava kamalobha deyaschaye cheta eta unavadam stitam sattve prasidati. In that mode, then the lower modes and their effects, such as passion and ignorance, lust, anger, and greed, don't affect one. And one is fixed in devotional service, in goodness. Sattvam prasidati, which is the natural joy of the soul begins to manifest in that mode. So that's what we're hoping for. That's what we should be aiming for. We should be determined. Now we understand how these modes, these gunas, act like ropes to keep us tied here. That's explained in the 7th chapter, in the 14th verse. This famous verse, some of you may know. Daivi yesha gunamayi mama maya dodatyaya mame viyepapadyante maya metang tarantite. 7:14. That this divine energy of mind, composed of the material energy, the material modes of nature, is extremely difficult to overcome. But those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. So there, right there is a big inducement to surrender to Krishna. And we'll find at the end of this chapter that indeed that is the means by which we can transcend the modes and come to our natural state of peace and happiness without the fear of falling down into the material, below the human platform and having to struggle up again through the species and all of these things. So Krishna is coming to the point of explaining that. And he says, what's the value? Janma mritya jara dukkha vimukto. You become liberated from the miseries of birth, death, old age, and what's the one he left out? Disease. Actually, disease is the worst of the four, when you think about it. What's old age without disease? I'm good, right? If you don't have disease. Problem is, with old age comes disease, and some problem more and more. And janma, okay, that's bad. 9 months in the womb, but we forget about that, and then it's over. And as far as mrityu goes, it's just a moment's experience. The real difficulty in death is all that comes before, and you're not sure what's going to happen, and you're terrified, and all of that goes around it. But the one that lasts is disease. The one that goes on year after year, you experience. Anyway, this is he mentions janma mrityu jara vyadi. So to be free of that and to taste nectar. So this is a great induction. Amritam is an interesting word. Amritam means literally deathlessness. And it also means nectar. Now, I like to point this out. I think this will be new for most of you. I discovered this many years ago. I was reading an article about nectar. What is that word nectar? Because I'm a word guy. I'm dealing with words all the time. It's made of two parts, neck and tar. Now, neck is like necrophilia. It's a word for death, probably Greek or something, right? And tar, we have the word, tarine, dina tarine. He delivers. It means to deliver. It's the same thing in Sanskrit. So the word nectar literally means amrita, beyond death, getting beyond death. Interesting, huh? Right in the English language, the same word is it. So, and so not only is the negative side, we no longer suffer from old age, disease, death, etc., but we are able to taste nectar. It's not just liberation from something. Liberation is is a negative thing. I'm tied up, I'm oppressed, now I'm liberated. Now what are you going to do? Oh, now I'm going to enjoy life, freedom of life. So we're tied up by the ropes, the gunas, that's another word for a meaning of the word guna, by these modes of nature, and our mind, which is being affected by these modes. So to be liberated, those ropes are cut, and we're in our natural free state where we can enjoy nectar of Krishna consciousness, relation to Krishna. So, any questions on this verse? Now Arjuna will ask him a very important question. Okay. Text 21. Arjuna vacha kairlingai strin gunanetan atito bhavati prabho kamachara katham chaitams trin gunan adivartate. Okay. Arjuna inquired, "O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature?" Okay. Purport. In this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of material nature? The second question asks how he lives, what his activities are. Are they regulated or non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. That is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendentally, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. So this is an important kind of a principle here. There's three things going on there. What are the qualities or characteristics of someone who's transcended? What are the activities? Because the activities manifest the qualities. How do you know that someone is a skilled dancer? You watch him dance, right? Oh, he's very skilled. Okay, I'll reserve my judgment. Let's see him dance. And then he dances very nicely. Yes, you're right. I get it. You see? Then the question is, how do you become a skilled dancer? You see, there's three things going on here. If you see someone manifesting qualities that you find attractive, you may be, want to emulate that person. This is one of the main principles of the word acharya. Notice the word achar is there, right? Kemachara katam kaitam. So what are the what achara is the basis of the word acharya. We know that word acharya, right? Founder acharya. So what are that? Does anyone know what the qualifications of a spiritual acharya are? There's three. Yes. Yes, he knows the revealed scripture very thoroughly, lives by their tenets. Don't say tenant. Tenet. Tenant is someone who lives in an apartment. A tenant is a principle. And he teaches, takes the trouble to teach. That's the three qualities of acharya. Without that acharya, we're helpless. Someone has to take the trouble to become, perfected in devotional service, and take the trouble to give it to others. That's a manifestation of real sadhu. This is coming from Kapila Dev, his teaching to his mother. There's a wonderful passage in the 25th chapter, 3rd canto. There happen to be 8 verses on the qualities of a sadhu and the benefits of associating with the sadhu. I dubbed it, I hope I'm not offensive, I dubbed it as the Sadhu Sangashtaka. The 8 verses describing the glories of association with sadhus. So this famous verse, this one I just quoted, one of the famous verses in the series. How do you recognize a sadhu? What are the qualities? And what are the activities? So the first one is tatikshava. Does anyone know what this word means? Besides, you know what it means. Tatiksha. Mata sparsha konteya, shitoshna sukadukada, agama pahino nityas, tams tatikshasa bharata. This is the verse that comes right after Deyinos Minyata Dehe, which is in the second chapter. Anyway, Titikshava means tolerant. And Karunika means compassionate, merciful. Anyone who goes out on book distribution knows that you got to have both of those qualities. If you weren't compassionate, who cares? Why should I go out? And when you go out, you got to tolerate, right? The beating on the false ego. They're saying no, 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 right? I tried it. So you have to be tolerant. And Prabhupada, he personified those qualities. Why did he get on the boat? Why did he come to America? Why did he tolerate us? Believe me, I lived in the Lower East Side. He had so much to tolerate just to live there. What to speak of try to attract people to this. But he persisted because he was moved by his spiritual master's order, by the prediction of Lord Chaitanya, and by his own compassionate heart. So, Titikshava Karunika, Sudidak Sarva Dehinam, the friend of every living being. Of course he's a friend of human beings, that's what he's preaching to, but even the animals, especially the cows and those, he's empathetic. What is that? Para dukkha dukhi. This is one of those phrases we can memorize. Para dukkha dukhi means that I feel the pain when others are painful, experiencing pain. This is called empathy. Para dukkha sukhi is sadism, sociopathy. Too much of that these days around. This is a great disease of the soul, really. So, but the sadhu is just the opposite. Para dukkha dukhi. Suridak sabade ajata shatravak. So his enemy was never born. This is also described of Yudhishthira. Now in English, it doesn't quite work, because if you have an enemy, it can mean that they feel enmity toward you. But here in Sanskrit, it means he has no enmity toward anyone. That's what it means. Others may hate him, just like Jesus Christ was crucified, probably would bring him up. And so many devotees, they go through so much difficulty. People don't want to hear it. But no enmity. And therefore peaceful. No material desires, simply desiring to help others. Shanta, sadhavak sadhabhushana, following the scripture. So these qualities manifest in someone who has transcended the modes of nature, because you see, by Krishna consciousness will become clear that one of the culminating verses here is coming up in 26. We're on 21 here. That how does one transcend the modes? Through Krishna consciousness, through bhakti. Mam chiyo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Avyabhichari means without deviation, with it not interrupted. Bhakti says Sogunan Samatichaitan, translate Mama Sogunan Samatichaitan, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, the Brahman platform in pure goodness. We're joyful all the time and so forth. So that'll come in a few verses. So this is setting it all up. The three things: the qualities, the activity that manifests those qualities, and the means or sadhana to achieve that state. That's what this verse is asking. And Arjun's asking the question, and Krishna will systematically give the answer. Okay, any discussion? Locally or remotely? Anyone out there today? I guess everyone decided to come personally. We have a big crowd here. Hello? They're there. She's there?
Hare Krishna.
Oh, you have a question. Go ahead, Dhanabai.
No, I don't have a question. I'm just saying Hare Krishna. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you.
We have a question from Bhakta Tyler. He's just saying present. Okay. Yeah. There's a close relationship. It's not exactly the same. This is how we, anybody, you see, well, what is his qualities? What is his or her qualities? Oh, they're very kind, or they're a mean person, And then the next thing is, and how do they show that? We do the A, B, C, and D. Qualities, activities, and then Krishna will say, how do you get there to that mean? By associating with the mode of passion and ignorance. It's a science. It's a science. If we cultivate the mode of goodness, we'll naturally become more peaceful, joyful, and will become more receptive to Krishna conscious philosophy, to taking up the process. It's just a way. I mean, haven't we noticed? Let me just ask as a research program. How many of you were vegetarians before you ever heard of Krishna consciousness? Many, right? Okay, pretty good showing. Naturally. So it's one of the things that makes you more inquisitive about such subjects. If you're eating meat, I mean, there's even a verse about it. There's a famous verse at the very, very, very beginning of the 10th canto. King Purikit is asking Shukadeva Goswami now we finally reached the 10th canto. Please now describe Krishna's Leela. The whole thing leads up to the summum bonum. So this verse is the only, or one of the, handful of verses that's actually quoted in the Krishna book. Right at the beginning of the preface or the introduction, I forget which. Nivritta tarshaya rupagiya manan babavsha tatshota manobiraman ka uttama shloka gunanavara puman varajeta vina pashugnat. Pashugnat. So here, Purikit is describing the great benefit of drinking in the medicinal nectar, ambrosia nectar of Krishna Katha, especially when sung or chanted or uttered by those who are Nivritta Tarshaya, free of all material desire, pure devotees. Ubhagiyamana, they sing it. Yeah? It acts as a bhavaushadhi. This word aushadhi in Sanskrit means an herbal medicine, literally. To cure, in this case, the disease of birth and death. It's a disease. We're in a disease condition in this material world. And it's not a bitter medicine. Shrota mono abhiramat. It gives great pleasure to the ear and the mind. So then he has a question. Who would give up hearing this Krishna Katha? Here's Purikit, maybe on the fifth or sixth day of his 7-day fast. He's not eating, he's not drinking, he's not sleeping, he's just hearing. Imagine that. 7 days straight. So now he's come to the 10th canto. It's about 2/3 of the way done. And he's not going to sleep now. Now it's come now, I'm going to really drink it in. Who would give up this nectar except someone who is a pashugnat? Pashugnat literally means animal killer. Meat eaters. Or it also means, according to the commentaries, those who are killing their own soul. This is the impersonalists. After understanding the evils of birth, death, old age, and disease, to simply want to get free of those without developing the relationship with God, in other words, merge into the impersonal Brahman and become the absolute and all this stuff. It's a tragedy, and it never really works. You think you're liberated, but ultimately, it's kind of boring up here. Just having no form, just being I am that I am. Can you imagine? Would any of us be satisfied? No deities, no holy name, no halva, no cookies, no prasadam. Simply freedom from birth, old age, disease, and death. Doesn't work, does it? The idea is that we crave variegatedness. We're souls, we're spirit. We want activity, we want relationship. We have form, we have quality, just like Krishna. So the impersonalists deny all that. So no. Any form, any activities is Maya. That keeps you bound up. I'm not going to engage in that. I'm just going to meditate on the Atma. But it's a disease state. And so their so-called liberation is just a mental concoction. And they fall down again, come to this world. But devotees eventually don't even care about liberation. The liberation is automatically there. One who is relishing at every moment is bhakti rasa with Krishna. It doesn't worry about liberation. In fact, it'll say, let me be born again, as long as I can be in devotional service. That's the real thing. And the fact is that the liberation is a byproduct of Krishna consciousness, of real pure Krishna consciousness. So let's go on to this description now of the qualities and activities of the liberated person who's transcended the modes. Shri Bhagavana Vacha Prakasham Channa Pravittim Cha Mohame Vachapandava Nadveshti Sampravittani Nanavrittani Kankshati Udasina Badasino Gunayo Navichalyate Guna Vartanta Ityevam Yovatishtati Ningate Samadukka Sukak Swastha Samaloshtasmakanchanaha tulya priya priyo dhiras, tulya nindatma sangstutihi, manapamanayos tulyas, tulyo mitradi pakshayo, sarvaramba padityagi, gunatita sa uchyate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. Purport. Arjuna submitted 3 different questions, and the Lord answers them one after another. In these verses, Krishna first indicates that a person transcendentally situated has no envy and does not hanker for anything. When a living entity stays in the material world embodied by the material body, it is to be understood that he is under the control of one of the 3 modes of material nature. When he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. He should engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. When one is conscious of the material body, he acts only for sense gratification. But when one transfers the consciousness to Krishna, sense gratification automatically stops. One does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The qualities of the material modes in the body will act, but as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. How does he become aloof? He does not desire to enjoy the body, nor does he desire to get out of it. Thus, transcendentally situated, the devotee becomes automatically free. He need not try to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. The next question concerns the dealings of a transcendentally situated person. The materially situated person is affected by so-called honor and dishonor offered to the body. But the transcendentally situated person is not affected by such false honor and dishonor. He performs his duty in Krishna consciousness and does not mind whether a man honors or dishonors him. He accepts things that are favorable for his duty in Krishna consciousness, otherwise he has no necessity of anything material, either a stone or gold. He takes everyone as his dear friend who helps him in his execution of Krishna consciousness, and he does not hate the so-called enemy. He is equally disposed and sees everything on an equal level because he knows perfectly well that he has nothing to do with material existence. Social and political issues do not affect him because he knows the situation of temporary upheavals and disturbances. He does not attempt anything for his own sake. He can attempt anything for Krishna, but for his personal self he does not attempt anything. By such behavior one becomes actually transcendentally situated. So, I couldn't help thinking as I'm reading this purport that Prabhupada is describing himself. And as he showed in his activities, so much difficulty, impossible saga of him coming to America and struggling so hard. And even after movement was established, so many shocks. One devotee, I won't name any names, one of his intimate devotees who helped him and was helping care for him during that period when he had a stroke at the end of May in 1967, and he had to go back to India for recuperation. There was a period where he has two devotees who were caring for him like that. So, and then he went to Hawaii, and there was a temple there, and he started, the temple. And then he got influenced, as it happens, he deviated, and he sold the temple, kept the money, and quit the movement. There's a letter where it was a great shock to me, and this was just one of many. So don't think that it was easy going, after Prabhupada had the movement established. Those early days were certainly great. So but he was never shaken by this. even in the time when it looked like he might leave his body, he was still chanting Hare Krishna. He said, here's the cure. There were 2 centers then, one in San Francisco, one in New York. Everybody should chant as much as possible. They would chant through the night, for him. And later on he said this is what saved him. Krishna saved him, obviously. But the point is that this cultivation of Krishna consciousness lifts one out of this bodily, ego-centered existence, where if someone insults you on the street, suddenly the anger wells up in your heart. You feel you want to strike the person or insult them back. Can escalate it, or a million different things that are symptoms of the being in the modes of nature. But if you're firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness, as we have so many great examples, Srila Prabhupada is one, and from the Shastra, Prahlad Maharaj, Haridas Thakur, in more modern age, and they were just fixed on meditating on Krishna, and even though physically attacked, they remained equipoised, and they were protected by Krishna. And it's practically it is supernatural, but even we can experience some of that. How if you're serious in regulation of Krishna consciousness, things don't bother you so much. The whole idea of shaving the head, I remember as a kid, I was very vain, I looked in the mirror. I was talking like 13 years old, and and I found a hair in my comb. I said, "Oh my God, am I getting bald?" It's crazy. But I was in the mode. I was deep in the modes, In other words, completely absorbed in the physical appearance. It's so prominent today. So many multi-billion-dollar industry to try to make the body a little thinner, a little more attractive. There's a whole problem, as I'm sure you probably know, with all these selfies, right? You take a selfie with the phone. But especially with the ladies, it's not quite, what I wanted. So they have these apps where you can make it more perfect, right? So then the thing that's going out, your public persona, is way beyond what you really are. So this creates a great deal of anxiety. What if they actually meet me in person? They're going to see I have a little more flab, It's crazy, right? But devotees aren't into that. What Prabhupada said, when you decorate the deity, that is much more pleasing than decorating yourself. You don't care so much. And you see the ladies, which is more obvious, they'll become less concerned. They'll dress decently, but they're not going to obsess about it because they're meditating on the beautiful forms. I'm telling you, in Alachua, Florida, they have a lot of older Prabhupada disciples, and especially the ladies. You can't go to India and and get on the altar, right? As a lady, it's very difficult, very very rare, if not impossible. But here in America, they dress so beautifully. You have to schedule 2 weeks in advance to get your turn to dress the deities there, Radha Shyamasundar. And the flowers, everyone's growing flowers in their garden, and you transcend that whole craziness about the bodily concept of life. It's such a losing proposition. You're getting older, you don't have that youthful glow anymore. Well, how can I re-get it? Oh, I'll buy this, I'll have this tuck happen, whatever, the thing, whatever. It's tragic, really, if it weren't so pathetic, But then if you're meditating on Krishna's beauty and you're chanting the holy name, you're the natural bliss that you have is coming out, and you're not concerned about these things. So this process of Krishna is describing the characteristics of someone who's transcended the modes. Basically, this you notice the word tulya comes in again and again in the Sanskrit. Tulya, tulya, tulya. Tulya means equal. That the stone and the gold. You have to be transcendental. The stone and gold, cool. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. No, that's this is really valuable. That we don't care about. But that duality, that differentiation, is the symptom of conditioning. This is in the 11th canto. We're reading now in the morning about Nabi and giving birth to Rishabdev, right? And then he had these 100 sons. And in the next chapter, now with the qualities of King Rishabdev, and then the next chapter, he's about to say goodbye to those 100 sons. He's giving an address, and those instructions are really important, And among those 100 sons who hear the instructions of Rishabdev, 11 of them are called 9 of them are called the 9 Yogendras, the masters of yoga. And in the 11th canto, they come in and they are instructing, I think it's Yudhishthir, and they come up one after another. Each has a very important lesson. And the first one chants this verse, Bhayam. What is the source of fear? That's the symptom of material life, bodily consciousness. The body is so fragile. I see this person got injured. I know my mother died, and this and that. How can I avoid that? With mortality, that is a great source of anxiety. What does it arise from? This is the verse. Bhayam. Bhayam means fear. What's Prabhupada's name? Abhaya. His given name was Abhaya. Then became Abhaya Charanadavinda. He's fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. Lack of fear is what we're looking for. Fearfulness is a symptom of material life, right? So the Bhayam, this is the source of it. Dvitiyabhanaveshatak comes into being when we become absorbed in the dualities of the material world. This is good, this is bad, this is dangerous, this is pleasurable, this is painful. This is all dictations of the mind, material mind and senses. And it all comes when we turn away from Krishna and we turn toward Maya, this phantasmagoria, and we get involved. This is bad, this is good, this is pleasurable, this is painful. And we're acting on the basis of those decisions. That's called illusion. That's called Maya. So Bhayam Dvitiya Ishad Apetasya, turning away from the Isha, the Lord, Krishna. Viparyayo Asmati. Everything becomes turned upside down. The things that are really good for us, we think we become indifferent to. The things that are sources of pain, we take to be sources of pleasure. Right? The sense gratification. Krishna is certified. That's the source of the pain. Yehi sangsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonayevate. One thing you learn, right, the difference between bhoga and prasadam. Right? Prasadam is transcendental. It'll cure your material disease and your spiritual disease. Bhoga, and don't touch it, because it's a trap. It brings pain. Sangsparshaja bhoga dukkha yoni. It is the source of all pain. Sense gratification, gross and subtle. So that's revolutionary. So where are we going to enjoy? With Krishna. By giving Krishna's pleasure, you automatically feel pleasure. Because we're part and parcel of Krishna. But by trying to please this material body, you ensure suffering. Because the body is limited. Eventually those things that used to give you pain are giving you all kinds of give you pleasure, or giving you all kinds of pain. So it's all a big dream that you can enjoy separately from Krishna, and we want to wake up from that dream. So this is Krishna is describing someone who's woken up, and the word tulya means equal. What does it say? Tulya priya priyo. Dear us. Things that are dear, the things that are inimical, or, you're dear us, you're indifferent, you're equal. Tulya nindatma samstuti. This is a big one. To be equal in praise and blame, insult. You're walking by a room and someone mentions your name, pick up your name. Oh, okay, what are they saying about me? Oh, very nice. They're saying what a wonderful devotee he is, They're saying, oh, he's always in Maya. What? It's practically impossible to become indifferent to that. But that's what it means. You don't care. Especially if it's some ignorant person, Manapamanayos tulyas. Praise or honor and dishonor. What is it? Trinada bisunichena? Right? What is it? Todoriva sahishnana? Amanena manadena. One of the symptoms that enables you to chant constantly, more humble than a blade of grass, as tolerant as a tree. More tolerant than a tree. Imagine. And then always giving praise to others and wanting none for yourself. That's the... Oh, I thought we ran out of time. So, that's what he's saying here. Mana apamaneos. Mana and apamana. Honor and dishonor. Tulyas. Tulya mitradi pakshiyo. And equal to your friends and your enemies. Not easy. This is the symptom of transcendence. And then Sarvarama Padatyagi. We don't, the pure devotee doesn't have any separate interest to do something for himself rather than Krishna. The impetus for activity is always Krishna. What is Krishna's interest? We might have to close the door to someone not listen to something over there. Yeah, sorry about that. This is an important point. At every moment to think, okay, I'm walking now from here to there because I'm going to do service over there. You know? So that walking itself becomes part of the service. You're seeing something, you're seeing the tree. Oh, this is a combination of Krishna's external and internal energies, the soul in that tree. Let me say Krishna, Hare Krishna, to the tree. Haridas Thakur says, it's much better to chant out loud, the japa, because those who hear you, you know, it could be lower animals or plants, they will also benefit. So it's beneficial like that. This is the devotee. Gunatita sa uchate. So this is the qualities, and the next verse, I might think it's running out of juice here. Okay. So I'm going to save the next verse because it's very important, and we'll discuss this one tomorrow night. Text 26. This is practically the key verse in the whole chapter. How to transcend the modes. That's a key element. It never just leaves you high and dry. Yes, Prabhu? Okay, wait for the I have trouble hearing through the mask.
So thank you, Dravida Prabhu. So you're talking about being compassionate and tolerant when we go out on book distribution, how we should be equal to friends and enemies. What if someone blasphemes the books, Krishna and Srila Prabhupada? How should we react to that?
Well, I know what you want, the answer you want. A kick with the left foot, and then you can the best thing is to separate yourself as quickly as possible, because where it might you know, in certain circumstances, certainly in a temple, the person has to be removed from the temple, you know, rather than you leaving the temple and leaving them with the deities. No, that doesn't work that way. So that's one context. But if you're out on the street, there's all these other people watching. How are you going to react? So that may affect so much, you know, of their reaching. So it's important to realize that. And one of the options is to leave the place as quickly as possible. Another one is to cut out the person's tongue. No, you shouldn't do that, you know, obviously. But it depends on the circumstances. Generally outside we try to pacify or cool out the situation, mostly by separating if possible, or, you know, like that. And certainly that's painful, and we can become angry at that, but our external behavior should be such that it furthers the service rather than create an incident and, you know, fewer books will be distributed. So that for something like that, Vijay he's over his 48-year career, a 43-year career of book distribution, he's faced every different situation, so he can give you a good answer for that. But the real thing here that's talking about is for oneself. In other words, that Vijay told the story how he's distributing somebody, and someone became very angry, was criticizing him, blasting him in his face, and he was completely quiet, you know, unlike other one who would get your dukes up, whatever, you know. And so a third guy was watching that, and he said, after the whole thing was gone, the guy was gone, he said, I want to see what kind of book you have. No, I could never do that. That's an amazing display of equipoise. He didn't use that word, but that's the idea. Even you're being attacked. The normal, you know, someone in the mode of passion ignorance immediately wants to attack. Nowadays, you know, there's 350 million guns in America, you know, and there more and more of them, people are losing their patience, and you know, anything can happen out there. But if you're, you know, you don't let it escalate, that's a tremendous sign of inner strength. And that's what he says here, that one remains dhira, even in that. So that the guy got a book, the third guy, because he was really interested in how Vijay displayed that dhira tendency even when provoked. So you can see how it can escalate. If someone's insulting you, then there's a real opportunity to display Titikshava, which is always a strength. It's a great strength to be able to do that. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.